In this video, we're gonna go over the 7 beliefs that every single prospect that you talk to as a remote closer needs to have to buy. If you don't understand these 7 things, your job as a remote closer is going to be extremely difficult. You're gonna be running uphill and you might not even make any money as a remote closer. So if you don't want that to be the case and you want to make the big bucks as a remote closer, make sure to check out this video. Welcome to the Remote Closing Academy. Hey, what's going on? Aaron here from the Remote Closing Academy, and I've spent the last about 5 days or so putting together this training for you guys, and I honestly think it's one of the most in-depth and psychological trainings that we've created, because if you understand these things, it is going to completely up your level as a remote closer, which is important when you're looking to become one of the best and make the most money out there possible. So we're just gonna jump right into this, and we're gonna talk about the 7 buying beliefs that every single prospect has to buy. So the important part about this, guys, and the 3 things we're going to go over is, number 1, again, the 7 beliefs. We're going to go over all of those things, what every single one of them are. Also, the questions you can ask to make sure that you have all of those beliefs, right? How can you actually get those 7 beliefs from your prospect? And the third thing is how you can handle any objection by knowing this information. And the reason that's powerful, guys, is, most people, what they teach is, if someone has an objection, then you should say this back to them. When a lot of times that's a very reactive base, like it's a very reaction-based sales. When you can take it more from an understanding of understanding the person and being able to, by the questions that you ask, actually put things back in front of them that they told you, that is going to set you up as such much more of a better salesperson, and not like, the really sleazy salespeople that are out there that just, throw these one-liners and make the other person feel really bad about not moving forward with these programs. So those are the 3 things we're going to cover. I think you guys are going to really enjoy it. So again, as I always say, make sure to get your sheet of paper, pen. We're going to go through this presentation and hopefully you take a ton from this. So before we jump into this, I want you to understand the main point of this presentation. And what it is I want you guys to fully understand the philosophies behind the concepts that we talk about, so you can understand how you can think about these, right? I don't want you to have to, come to these videos every single time that you have a problem within your sales process. I want to teach you how to think and the philosophies to have so that you can go and implement these things. And as a byproduct of understanding those philosophies, you can answer your own questions, again, without feeling like you need me, in your back pocket to answer it. So just take that into consideration when we're going through these things, is to just think about the processes and the philosophies that we talk about, and everything else will fall into place after that. So what are the 7 beliefs? We have 7 of them. So we have pain, doubt, cost, desire, money, support, and trust. I've said these like a million times at this point, through understanding my sales processes: pain, doubt, cost, desire, money, support, trust. Pain, doubt, cost, desire, money, support, trust. So obviously it takes a little bit to get to that point, but one thing that really helped me is putting together a mnemonic device, which is this. And that is, please don't come down my street today. So what that is, again, PDCD MST. So PDCD-MS. It just helps you understand and remember, look at these almost like as a checklist of, okay, I have pain, doubt, cost, desire, money, support, trust. So here's the way I want you to think about it, guys, is imagine, and you can close your eyes for this, or, if you have to think about it this way, I love like visual learning. So imagine you're trying to unlock a door, right? You have a door that's in front of you. And on the other side of that door is a pot of gold. Right? There's gold on the other side, and that gold could be whatever your goal is, right? So let's say it's $10,000 a month, leaving your job, whatever it may be, right? There's gold on the other side. And the only way that you can actually get past that door, right? Open the door, is by getting the 7 keys. There's 7 keys, there's 7 locks on the door that you need to unlock. And if you don't have those keys, it makes it impossible to open and get the gold, or just makes it like really, really hard for yourself. So think about that as these 7 beliefs, is each belief is a different key. And in order to unlock the door that's in front of you, right, in order to get the prospect to actually move forward, they need to understand those 7 beliefs. These 7 beliefs we're going to go over. Now, visual representations aside of doors that are in front of you, now we're going to go over these 7 beliefs and exactly what they are. So we're going to go over that. Then the second part we're going to go through is the questions that you can ask to make sure you get all these 7 things. And the third part is going to be how to handle objections with the information from the questions that you ask. And this is all going to make sense. At the end, you're going to have this massive light bulb moment when we actually go through this stuff. So let's cover pain first. So pain is massive. Like, it is literally crucial. You can't do anything else in the call if you don't have pain. If you don't have pain, and I put at the bottom, if there is no pain or there's no problem, there will be no sale. Because remember, when people pay you, right, business is all about solving problems. And people exchange, and that is valuable for people, right? And if you can show your value to other people, people exchange money for value. So if you can't demonstrate that you can fix the problem for someone else, they won't they won't buy from you, right? So you got to always understand, okay, first things first on every single sales call, and it's in a lot of our sales scripts, is what is your biggest challenge right now? Or what is not working in the capacity that you think that it should? And we'll go over the questions here in a second, but pain, just understand that that is what pain is. Now, the next one here is doubt. So this is the inability to fix the problem, right? If there's no doubt and that they can like just go out and do it on their own and they feel like they can do it on their own, they aren't going to move forward, right? Think of it this way. Like, let's say I'm trying to come up with an example. Let's say you're talking to someone about like their weight loss program, but you feel like you know all the workouts and all the nutrition that you need to do that. Why would you pay someone, right? Or why would you believe that you need to pay someone? Because you feel like you can do it yourself. So doubt is the inability to fix the problem. I should have added like fix it in there like by themselves. So that's the inability to fix a problem. Cost, and this, I don't want you to confuse this with money, right? Because cost, usually like how much does it cost? That's not what I'm talking about, but this is the cost or the consequence of not taking action in that thing, right? The cost of not taking action, and this is the important part, is the cost of not taking action needs to be much higher than getting into your program, right? So an example would be, I'll use a weight loss example for, again, is let's say the person wants to lose weight because they have some sort of like health ailment, right? Let's say diabetes, or I don't know much about the, diabetes and type 1 and type whatever, but it's the problem, right, of them. Let's just say, for example, if they don't move forward on the thing, is they are going to, continue to go down this negative place of health, right? That for most people is going to be, okay, I choose one of two things. I keep down the path that I'm on, or I change that and I'm able to, do X, Y, and Z, right? Live longer, spend time with my family, that type of stuff, right? So again, something that a question that you can ask, and I'll go more in detail on this in a second, is, what's going to happen if nothing changes, right? That's a really good question to ask to help get that cost from someone, right? What is the cost of them not doing the thing? And then jumping into desire is, this is the compelling payoff of fixing the problem. So the way you can think about it is almost like the opposite of cost, right? Cost is like, what's going to happen if you don't do this? Desire is like, okay, what's going to happen if you do this, right? What is going to be the benefit of the benefit? For example, let's just say, someone wants to make more money online, right? Or make more money in general, right? They're working a 9 to 5. Them leaving, the first benefit is, okay, cool, I can make more money. But the desire is, okay, I can make more money, but then I can make more money to do X, Y, and Z, right? That's a desire. So, again, I put on here, and we'll talk about this in a second. So if you were able to hit X, Y, Z goal, paint the picture for me. What would that look like? Like, what would the world look like for you if you were able to hit your XYZ goal, right? So that's the desire. What are they desiring? Like, why? Like, what is the thing that's going to make them ultimately make the decision to fix that problem, right? So the thing I put at the bottom is, think of the framework of away from and towards. So an example that my partner Cole always talks about is, there was a study done by the guy that wrote the book Influence. And it's a study about vaccines, and this was before COVID, just, back in a couple, decades ago. And they talk about, they had two advertisements, and one advertisement was a billboard that said, you should get a vaccine, right? And the other billboard said, you should get a vaccine because it helps you do benefit, right? That one ultimately performed better, and they got better responses because you're pushing them towards, again, away from, right, the negative parts of having a vaccine, towards, of not having the vaccine, towards the benefit of having that. So I kind of butchered that one, but just make sure to understand that, again, desire is the compelling payoff of fixing the problem. Now, money is, again, most people assume this to just be like, do they have the money? But it's actually two things, is do they have the money, right? The resources and willingness to fix the problem, right? Resources is the physical money in the bank, but willingness is, is in the name, right? Are they willing to put the resources forward to fix that problem? So an example is someone that came through one of our coaching programs before, or, they didn't jump into it, but they were a lawyer, right? And lawyer, he was making a good amount of money. He was making like $300,000 a year, $400,000 a year. And it was a dating program. And what happened is there wasn't enough, willingness within him to pay the $6,000 that it was to actually join that dating program, right? It's not that he didn't have the money, it's that he didn't have the willingness to actually jump into that. So again, there's two parts of it, is you need to understand, do they physically have the resources for that, right? And we'll talk about here in part 2, we'll talk about the questions to ask to make sure that, you don't get the objection of like, I need to think about it, or that's too much money. Now you might be asking, the last point on here is like, if they aren't willing, that ties back to cost. Well, really all these things are going to tie together, because if someone's not willing to do it, right, their cost of not doing it probably isn't that high. The pain of not doing it probably isn't that high. And the cost, or I'm sorry, the desire of what they want on the other end probably isn't that high, right? And you didn't ask the right questions to actually get those things out of them. So you'll see a lot of these things do tie together, and it's why you have to have the 7 of the beliefs and really understand them to their T, really, in order to make the sale and really use these things against each other. Now, moving on to the next one here, number 6 is support. And this is the people around you support you in fixing the problem. So this could be something like, your spouse, your business partner, decision maker, right? A lot of common objections are like, I need to go talk to my business partner, I need to talk to my spouse, whatever it may be. So you need to have full buy-in from those people, and again, support in you fixing the problem. And the last one is trust in your method of fixing the problem. So they have to trust that you as a person, right? Let's say you're selling an offer. They need to trust that the thing that you are selling, the method that you're selling, is actually going to help them get to the other side. Because if they don't believe that to be true, then again, you're not going to make the sale. So they have to trust that you have the thing that is going to get them to that point. So for example, one example that Cole always gives as well is the method, for example, Russell Brunson, right? He sells ClickFunnels. Whenever he does presentations or videos or whatever it may be, he only spends like 1% of the time talking about the ClickFunnels, but everything else that he talks about is helping you understand that the method of funnels itself, right, agnostic of the software, that funnels are the best way to build your business online. So if you can focus on the method of that actual thing, right, the method that funnels are the right thing, well, guess what? If people understand that to be true of funnels being the answer to their prayers, then they're going to look at, oh, well, this guy's talking about this thing called ClickFunnels and they're funnels, and I know that I need to have funnels to grow my business. So again, as a byproduct of all of that is they're trusting the method that the thing is going to help them reach their goal. So if we go back to the pain part, and I want you guys to really I want to make this engaging, right? Comment down below. Can you guess what all of these things have in common, right? Doubt, cost, desire, money, support, trust. If you go back through and look, it's pretty obvious, but every single one of those things, doubt, cost, desire, money, support, trust, all these are predicated on the problem. So that's why we talk about, if you don't have the problem, there is no sale, because you can't even ask the rest of these questions, right? So if we look at doubt, it is the inability to fix the problem. Cost is the cost or consequence of not fixing the problem, right? Desire is the compelling payoff of fixing the problem. Money is the resources and willingness to fix the problem. Support are people around you supporting you in fixing the problem. And trust is your method is going to actually help them fix that problem. And I know it's kind of a lot to take in, but if you remember anything from this presentation, pain is the most important one to get. All the rest of the questions are going to come based off of what they answer as the pain. Now, what we're going to go over now is the questions that you can ask for each of these to get all 7 of these from your prospect, and then also the objections that are handled and how to handle the objections based on you understanding those 7 things. So first one, again, we're going to go through this list again, and this might seem really redundant, but being redundant and like repetition is the easiest way to really grasp this stuff as much as possible. So pain, the question that you can ask, right? And there's a ton of different questions that we'll cover in other videos to really break down each of these, but pain, one of the best questions that you can ask is, at the beginning of the call, we always start our sales calls with this, hey, John, so before we jump too deep in this, I think the best place to start is, what do you feel like is your biggest challenge right now with, what you're doing in your business, or what's not really working at the capacity and the way that you think that it should, right? That's a really good question, because you're immediately grabbing the pain, and then you input that pain into every other question that you ask against doubt, cost, desire, money, support, trust. So this really handles every objection, right? If you have the answer of what is their problem, you can put that back in front of them to help them understand why this is the best thing for them. So the last point down here that I have is, this is how you would handle that objection, right? It's like, hey, so I got you. So, earlier, John, you told me that you wanted to jump into, you want to jump into this because it's going to help you get out of your 9-to-5 job that you told me that you hated. So, what's the real problem here, right? When you handle each of these objections, you can see that I'm not like just putting up a wall and saying, having this line that I put back in front of them, is I'm taking the information that they already told me and putting it back in front of them, right? There's this thing called the consistency bias. I forgot who exactly came up with this idea, but the consistency bias is, as humans, we want to show up and we want other people to see us as consistent as possible. So when we ask the right questions, they tell us these things, and then we put that back in front of them, they're going to want to stay consistent. So if we can tell them, hey, John, you told me earlier that you told me XYZ, in their head, they're like, shoot, I did say that. Then what we can do is get to the root of the objection and the root of the problem. So in almost every single one of the objection handlers you'll see on here is it always says something like, hey, I got you. So earlier you told me X, or earlier you mentioned this, or you told me a second ago this, right? So that we can implant that into them and we're not just like putting our beliefs onto them, right? These are their own beliefs that they already told us earlier in the call. And that's where it comes to asking the right questions. So doubt, good question to ask to get that out of them. What have you tried in the past to fix this? And, why don't you think there's been a change, right? Because if you can figure out what they've tried in the past and, why they haven't reached that point, when they give you the objection of, I want to go and try to do this myself, it's like, well, hey, gotcha, John. So earlier you told me that you've been trying to do this for the last 5 years. So, why would this time be different? You said you've already been trying this. So like, I don't understand. Like, what do you mean you're going to go try this and do this yourself, right? And you'll hear kind of the way that I say this is you don't want to frame it as like gotcha, like you told me this, like you don't want to frame it that way. You want to say it more from like a very just like genuinely curious standpoint. Cause that's really the way that I think about it, right? It's like when they say something that's inconsistent with what they told you, right? I just want to act genuinely confused. It's like, well, dude, like, you just said you want to go try to do this on your own, but like you also told me you've been trying to do this for a long time and you haven't reached the goal. And here's where like you putting the things together. It's like, well, dude, you told me you've been trying this for a really long time and you really want to, back to the pain, right? You haven't got to that point. And if you don't get to that point, then you're not going to like lose the weight and build the confidence that you told me you wanted to earlier. So I'm just confused, like what's going to be like, what's different, right? What's going to be different in you trying this yourself, right? So you can almost like stack these different things. That's also where it comes important to make sure that you're writing down different notes. So let's move to cost. So again, cost is like, so, John, what's going to happen if nothing changes, right? What's going to be happen if you can't get away from insert the problem they told you? Again, this handles the objections of like, well, I want to go think about it. It's like, well, I got you, man, but John, earlier in the call is that you told me if you don't make this change, your next 5 years are going to be like your last 5 years. So do you truly want to hit, the goals and the desires that you told me, right? Insert goals and desires. Or is that just something that you're telling yourself? And this should say, is your next 5 years going to be like your last 5 years is what I want to put there. So when you're putting that information back in front of them. When we go to desire, so desire, great question for this is, so, if you were able to hit your goal of $20,000 a month, John, paint the picture for me. Like, what would your life look like at that point, right? They'll tell you everything. So when they tell you again, I want to think about it. And these objections, like there's a ton out there, but if you just like really kind of like understand this training, like critically think about it, you can figure out what objection you can handle which one with. You don't necessarily need like a full on like breakdown of like, say this if they say this or anything like that. Back to what I said earlier, right? The principles, if you understand the principles, then you'll be in a really good spot. So again, handles the objections. I want to think about it. And then, so, again, what you would say back to them is like, okay, I gotcha. John, I'm a little confused here because earlier you said the reason that you wanted to, make an additional $20,000 a month is because that's going to allow you to really build a life for your family that you're looking to. And you can go on extra vacations and take, your wife, your spouse, your husband, partner, you can take them on, on more dates and spend more time with them. So, John, I'm curious, like, has anything, like, what's changed? Like, do you still have a feeling that like you want those things? Right? Like, help me understand, right? So you're coming from that curiosity standpoint based on what they told you that their desire was before. So money is, what are you currently doing? So money is a little bit of a different one. There's more questions you can ask to really get this out of them, but a really easy way, and the offers will be different, right? So if you're doing let's say it's like a B2B offer where they're very clearly coming to you because they need more leads and they want to grow their business, you would just ask them, okay, John, like, what are you guys currently doing? Or what did you guys do last month in terms of monthly revenue, right? And you kind of like chunk down through that. But what you can do is, if it's not like an ROI type offer, like, weight loss or whatever it is, you'd ask them, what are you currently doing for for work right now? And based on what they say, you can like financially qualify. So again, this handles the objections of, I don't have the money or that's too expensive, right? You'll hear that a lot. But if you ask the questions on the front end of, hey, so like, what are you currently doing for work? If they say they're unemployed, right, you're going to want to like dive a little bit more into that. It's like, okay, so you're unemployed, and then that would come to the next one, right? If you were able to solve this problem for you, do you have the resources and the willingness to fix that? Like if it's something that you actually want to fix, and do you have the resources for that? So you can add, without getting, that second one's a little bit more invasive, right? But the first one is if you know what they're doing for work. Great example, yesterday, one of the appointments that I sat through Instagram, it was the person said, I'm a software engineer. So I'm like, okay, he's an engineer, a software engineer. I don't necessarily need to dig more into that because I know that he has the resources. Now I just need to figure out, does he have the willingness and all of these other 6 things. And the last thing I put on here is the open wallet trick. So this is how you would handle that objection. And this, again, there's different nuances and different ways. We can do a whole other video on objection handling for this objection specifically. But the open wallet trick, if they give you like, well, I can't afford this, or that's too expensive, you do the open wallet trick of like, well, John, earlier you told me that we're going into, John, you told me that, the reason you want to do this is because like, you really don't want to be, at this income level anymore. And you want to spend more time with your bubble, and you just go through all these things, so John, is it that you like physically don't have like the resources, like the cash on hand, or do you just not see how this investment is going to help you get to that point, right? And if they say, well, like, I just don't have the resources, like I literally don't have any money, I'd say, okay, gotcha. Like, what is in your savings account right now? What is in your blah, 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 right? Because a lot of times, back to the willingness, is it's not so much that they're like, oh, well, like this is too expensive, that they just can't fathom spending X amount of money or, X amount of dollars for a specific program. And a lot of that's going to come back to like previous experiences, investments that it might have made in the past, right? Maybe they've never invested in themselves, which really both those things are past experiences. So you really just got to figure out like what type of prospect are they, and you can ask those different questions on that. But like I said, we'll make a completely different video on the money objections. Now, support is, a question you can ask is, do you feel like we need to, or do you feel like we need to have anyone else here to move forward to help you fix X, Y, and Z? So this, a lot of times, like you don't necessarily want to ask this on everyone. Like if you're talking to just like a person, right? And you're going through their story and they say, they talk about how like their wife and, or their partner or whatever, I would maybe interject this in there. It's like, okay, gotcha. So you just talked about your wife. Like, do you feel like she needs to be a part of this conversation so we can kind of like fill her in and make sure that, everything's good to go if we can actually help you fix X, Y, and Z. And, sometimes they'll say yes, sometimes they'll say no, but if you can catch it quick enough, you can usually either stop the call and be like, hey, let's go and get them on the call next. So we're just all on the same page, especially because it involves that person. But if it's something more B2B, if let's say, for example, Cole gives this example all the time, is, there was a software or a specific program that he wanted to jump into, but he wasn't going to be the one to actually implement on that. Actually, I think it was within our team. So he wanted to invest in this program. And as a creative team and as a sales team, we needed to be the ones to implement. But then he came to us and he was like, hey, do you guys have time to implement them? We're just like, honestly, no, like we have a lot of initiatives that we're working with. So that rep ultimately didn't make the sale because he wasn't supported by the team to make that decision. So, it could have been a completely different story. Let's say if that rep was like, hey, let's go ahead and get your whole team on board. And for us, we maybe just didn't understand like the time, commitment that went to it and all those things internally. So that could have been a way that rep saved it. And ask that type of question, which goes back to this. Again, this handles the objection of I need to talk to my spouse or my partner. So at the end of it, again, you can say the things of like, so what do you think that person would say about this? Or, should we get that person on the call to help us get started ASAP, right? To fix rest of beliefs, right? Because you have all the ammunition that you need. And then the last one here is trust. So how do you feel on a scale from 1 to 10 that what we laid out here today is going to help you fix X, Y, and Z? So this question a lot of time is going to be built 2 ways. Number one, I think trust is really just, and this isn't really like it's not necessarily tactical, but a lot of it is going to come down to you as a person, the way that you speak, the conviction in your offer, right? All those little things are almost like little building blocks that are trickled on throughout the sales call. And if you can just speak with confidence, that you're there, you're going to help them, that slowly helps build up trust within that person. Now, at the end of the call, again, this is more of like a linear yes or no of like, how do you feel on a scale from 1 to 10 that what we laid out to here today is going to help you fix X, Y, and Z? And what they'll say is, well, I'm at, let's say 7, right? And you'd come back, okay, gotcha. So like, what would get you a 10 out of 10? They'd tell you whatever it is, you answer those questions. When you get them a 10 out of 10, this is one of the easiest ones. Because if they tell you and you're like, hey, John, just to confirm, you're a 10 out of 10, that this is the right thing and now's the right time to help you reach the goal that you told me. And if they say yes, at the end of the call, if they're like, I don't know if this is going to work for me, like this just doesn't sound like it's going to work, I would just literally say like, well, dude, like a second ago, you just told me that you were a 10 out of 10, that this is the right thing, now's the right time, it's going to help you get to that point. So, where do you feel like is the disconnect? Why don't you feel like it's going to help you hit X, Y, and Z? And then they'll tell you all the objections and you can help them pass that second part. So, all right, guys, definitely one of the longer trainings that we've done on this channel, but hopefully this gives you the tools and the resources that you need to see success. Now, before you jump off, down below, because you're like, Aaron, I want to use this information now. Like, I feel like I'm on top of the world. Let me use this. So click the first link down in the description below. It's going to bring you to a training of the step-by-step process of how you can start working in the remote closing industry and get closer to your first $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a month mark. Because honestly, like this training, less than 1% of salespeople understand this. So even just from this training, you can implement this into some of your calls and absolutely crush it and really stand out as a remote closer. So make sure to click the first link down in the description or click the video on screen. It's going to bring you to our other closer/remote closer one-on-one series where, we're going to go over some more of the methodologies and the philosophies and the scripts that we use to get people to move forward. So click the video on screen, click the video down in the first link down in the description, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Talk soon. Peace.